All right, folks. So let's talk about Essay 3. Now, for this one, you're basically going to be reporting information for us on a superhero or supervillain, and you get to choose. Before we dive into that, let's talk about some due dates. So the week of Monday through Friday, November 2nd through 6th, which I believe actually constitutes week 10 for us, that is when our peer review will take place. That Friday, November 6th, is when you will turn in your rough draft to me, and then it will be the following Friday, November 13th, when you will turn in the final draft. Now, your basic task here is to report on a superhero or supervillain of your choice. As I stated, you will be required to provide us with an introduction, thesis statement, and a paragraph dedicated to defining either a superhero or supervillain, or if you choose to go the route of an anti-hero. This thesis is much simpler than Essay 3, but after that you will then have a series of sections that we'll see more of in the template. All right. But, so you'll see here we have an introduction with ending with a thesis statement. We'll want to incorporate a formal introduction into this, so we'll want to go out and find a formal definition. We'll want to quote it. And then we're going to be asked to answer a series of sub-questions that we'll talk a little bit more here. But what basically ends up being part of this paper through its genre is a specific topic, which by picking one superhero or supervillain, you'll have done that. Clear definition, making sure that you have that clear definition of what constitutes a superhero or supervillain, depending on your angle, or in certain cases, an anti-hero. And then well-researched. You'll want to go out and gather information to answer those questions. Now, this can best be pointed out and helped out here by taking a look at the template, and I will have more information to follow for us that will elaborate on some of this middle section that we'll note here. But let's take a look at this. So you'll see here that the introduction, and we'll talk more about this idea of the thesis statement, because just like with Essay 2, I'm going to have you guys work on the introduction and thesis statement this week. Then you'll want to find a definition, and you're going to want to introduce it, integrate it, cite it, explain it. And the explanation typically in this section here centers around, here's the definition, and then your explanation should want to center around how does your character fit that definition. So if I was going with the standard Superman, I said something about, I think a Merriam-Webster dictionary one has one about having superpowers. Well, that's easy. I could talk about Superman being part of that, and you'll see this, and we'll talk more about this at the end of this week and into next week. Then you're going to have a sections where I label these: who are they, what are they, when are they, and where are they. And inside of these, and I'm going to share with you an example where I worked this out using kind of an example. I think I used Captain America. But each of these sections roughly constitutes about 2 paragraphs, and you're going to try and answer some of these sub-questions that I've got in here. And I guess an easy way of looking at it would be if I did something like this, so that you could sort of see it. I leave it like that mainly because I want you to consider that you are writing this in paragraph form, but this gives you some context of what you need to be looking for. Things like, what is the basic identity of the superhero, supervillain? Describe them. What is their alter ego? Are they associated with any kind of particular group? Do they appear to have some kind of purpose, specific or not? All right. That would be about 2 paragraphs. That's going to require that you go out and find some information, and we'll be talking more about that too. Second section, what does the superhero villain specifically do? What are their powers? What's the character's target audience? Based on what you can gather, what people are most attracted to this character and why? Okay. And remember, each of these sections is roughly 2 paragraphs. Now, these first 2, we're talking about the character as a fictional character inside their fictional world. But starting with this second section right here, we're going to branch out. So you'll see that one of the first questions you're asked here is, when and where was the character created? Who created the character? Where did this character first appear? Okay. Now, it doesn't seem like it may be hard to answer these questions, so how do you do 2 paragraphs? Well, this is the idea where quoting and integrating quotations becomes an important factor here. And then the last section is, where does the character belong in our pop culture today? What's the character's influence? What other mediums other than besides comics has the character appeared in? Your conclusion, and then you'll have a works cited page. Now, We'll talk more about this, but ultimately your works cited page is going to contain, of course, a citation for your formal definition, but it will also contain hopefully somewhere around 3 other potential sources you'll use, and I'll talk about these in a further lecture, getting into some further detail with that. But let's go back over here to the assignment sheet. We have a checklist, and I do have an example for you guys, again, on this one. I've used in the past, I've used the McLeod as a reading example of just information, but we'll just look at this example. Keep in mind that this is not a perfect example. This is actually me commenting on a student's previous work, but this is just to sort of give you an idea of some of the things. Now, of course, like I said, not being perfect, this person, you can also look at my comments to see what this person did right and didn't do that I would have liked to see them do. This person had a tendency to only give me 1 paragraph, but you can kind of see just sort of a rough working example here. Of course, they didn't do very well in the works cited, so you can almost treat this as an example of what not to do. But this is to get us started, and what we'll be spending our time this week in the discussion forum is specifically asking questions and talking about this as we go forward.